going on, everybody? Happy Tuesday. Welcome on in. Myself, Riggs Tamburo, Bryson Owens. Hope you guys are all doing well. Today, we are jumping on into some NFL draft talk, specifically that man, quarterback Shedeur Sanders. Is he QB1, QB2, QB3? Bryson, I'm seeing some people saying this guy is QB5, QB6 on their list right now. So we'll get into that one in just a minute. But before we get into where this guy's going to get drafted, maybe the best team for him, maybe the sleeper pick, we can see someone giving up some capital for him. Let's talk about him as a quarterback specifically. Once again, I've seen a lot of people very high on him, seen a lot of people very concerned. So looking at just his size alone, coming in right now at about 6'2", 215 pounds. As you guys see it, that one last year, 4,137 pass yards, 37 touchdowns. He did throw 8 interceptions in 2024, tied 20th nationally in QBR at 75.5. Buffalo's 9-4 on the year, better than everybody thought. Mr. Owens, you are a guy who watched this man in person multiple times last year as a credentialed media member. What's your take on him?
I think Shedeur is an interesting prospect because he's not going to blow you away with the tangibles, the size. He's a pretty average to below average size quarterback. He reminds me a lot of like Bo Nix's size when he came out last year, the 6'1"-ish range. He's a little bit slender than Bo Nix was coming into the draft last year, but like people knocked on Bo Nix last year because of his size going into the draft. He's going to look completely opposite in terms of like pros and cons compared to when you look at him compared to his other quarterback at the top of the draft with Cam Ward. Cam Ward is like all tangibles. He's got the size, he's got the arm strength, he's got the athleticism. If you could just build an athlete to play the quarterback position, it's Cam Ward. It's not necessarily Shedeur Sanders. What wins Shedeur is all the intangibles, the leadership, the little things he does well, like accuracy. He completed 74% of his throws. I know a lot of those were screen passes and a lot of those were easier throws, but still 74% in any level of high-level football, pretty impressive, whether you're throwing a lot of screen passes or not. He's a great leader from everything I've heard about him. He's one thing I think has not been talked about enough is when you get drafted really high into the draft, typically you're going to a really bad team. That's why they're drafting in the top of their draft. So you have to draft a guy you think can kind of shepherd you into the next stage of your franchise and being a competitive team moving forward, maybe without the most ideal pieces around him. Well, Shedeur Sanders in his college career went to Jackson State and went to CU. And he took Jackson State from like a 2-win program into one of the top teams in that conference. And he took CU from literally the last ranked D1 program the year he transferred to CU. And in 2 years, got them to a winning record, got them to a bowl game. So for Shedeur, it's a lot of the mental stuff that people like about him. They like his attitude. They like his composure in the pocket. They like his leadership. They like his accuracy, his ability to read the defense. He's just not going to wow you with the physical traits. And that's okay. There's a lot of really good quarterbacks in this league who don't wow people with physical traits. He can be a really good quarterback in the NFL despite those.
I couldn't have said that any better than you, man. I understand some of the concerns that I think a lot of people have. And we've had so many of these debates and we've listened to so many shows about people talking about him. And I read a lot of articles on him and his breakdown. And I watch the combine and all these different things. People want to take one clip of one snippet of one thing and, oh, look how bad he is. He overthrows receivers. It's like, well, now show the 22 of the 25 that he hit him on the dot. With that said, I think Shedeur Sanders, on top of being Shedeur's kid, on top of being, behind Cam Ward on people's boards, he has to fight through the fact of and this isn't a problem for him, but I think people on the outside, specifically teams, they can't buy into some of the narratives. People think because he holds up his rollie, that he's a pain in the ass kid and that he's not, mature and all these things. But then go talk to Dion. Go watch him in the pressers. This dude is as poised as they come. He is a very respectable young man. He's very grounded. Dion is, in my opinion, not just one of the best coaches, but one of the best dads that you're ever going to see. He doesn't let his kids just be these wild, flashy, too cocky, too good for you type of guys. So that whole narrative that I think a lot of people are still to this moment trying to hang on from Colorado with the watch, that he's, trouble. I just don't like it. He's not Johnny Manziel. He's not one of those quarterbacks. With that said, 6'2", 215, it's a good size for a quarterback. 6'4", he's the clear number one pick. 6'4", 225, he's the number one pick. Now, with that said, the thing about Shedeur being only 215 and 6'2" is he's a very good runner. And that's one thing that you and I have talked about before. It's something I've been very high on Shedeur before, is that whenever I watch this guy roll out of the pocket, specifically when I see him actually run straight downhill, when he kind of looks left, looks right, and just says, you know what, fine, I'll just take it. How many times at Colorado do we see this guy run it 20, 30, 35 yards into the end zone for a touchdown, just untouched, no one there? They don't respect him as a runner, and I don't really understand why. So with all that said, now that
I think real quick to touch on the running part of it, I think what confuses a lot of people with Shedeur when they break down his tape, and especially when they try and compare him to Cam Ward, because Cam Ward is more of a running quarterback than Shedeur is. Like, Shedeur is a more opportunistic runner. He runs when it's needed. He runs when he absolutely has to. He wants to extend plays to throw the football, while Cam Ward wants to extend plays by taking it himself a lot of the times. I think people confuse those a little bit. They make it seem like Shedeur is not a great athlete, kind of like what you're saying. A lot of people have, well, you've been reading a lot about him. He's a really good athlete. He's just not a earner. He's not a Lamar Jackson. He's not a Jaden Daniels. He's the guy who's going to buy as much time as he can so he can throw the ball downfield and make plays with his arm instead of his legs. But he's a good runner. He is a good runner when he has to.
There is another thing that I have just been honing so far in on, and Mel Kiper mentioned it as well on ESPN, and I was listening to it, and I was like, thank you, Mel, for actually paying attention to things that this kid's done over the last 2 years in Colorado. When he rolls out and he throws, he's the best at it. And he's actually phenomenal at doing it. And it's something in the NFL where, another narrative in college was, Shedeur Sanders takes too many sacks, and, he's scared to get hit, and he's all these different things. And it's like, it's just so far from the truth. He doesn't want to take the fact that people thought he was taking sacks to make his passing percentage not go down was just so stupid to me. When I see this dude roll out, and once again, I actually think that's kind of when he's the most comfortable, is when he's on the move, because he does it very well, other than that one cheap shot. You know what play I'm talking about. Outside of that, the dude runs down or rolls out with more confidence than anybody I've ever seen. When he rolls and he throws, and the difference is he can do it left and he can do it right. And that's one of the things that makes him so special, is I've watched him run to the left, across body, going out the Hail Mary. Remember the Hail Mary? What team was that? Yeah. I'm blanking on the team in that game.
Baylor, I believe.
Baylor. There you go. That was rolling opposite, throwing across. And I know he kind of set his feet, but he did it very, very quickly. And it's just the testament to a 55, 60-yard ball on the dime, on the run, all the pressure in the world coming in the biggest moment of the game. Either get it or you lose, and he gets it done. Like, he's just one of those quarterbacks. So I wanted to ask you, though, about the way he rolls out. Do you think in the NFL that's going to work the same way that it did in college, or do you think they're going to want to protect him a lot more and not let him try that?
I think it's an interesting thing. You have to be careful with a young quarterback, because that was Caleb Williams' whole thing out of USC and Oklahoma, was he was at his best when he was avoiding sacks and he was running out of the pocket, making throws on the run. And in college, when you're still probably a better athlete than most of the defensive linemen on the field, you can get away with that a little bit easier. The NFL is a different story, and you saw that with Caleb Williams his rookie year. He couldn't avoid sacks the way he could in college. He couldn't get away with the scrambling like he did at USC, and it did hurt Caleb Williams, especially early in the year. I think he adjusted, and I think he found his groove late in the year for the Bears. I think Shedeur is going to have to do something similar. You're going to have to try and find some way to keep him structured in the pocket, because Shedeur isn't that top-tier level athlete. He's good enough, but he's not that top tier where he can just rely on scrambling and getting out of the pocket every play. So I think you want to let him explore that. You want to let him play like that when it's necessary. You want to create some sort of structure in the pocket where he's not having to run around like a chicken with his head cut off to make plays too often. So I think it's a little bit of both. I think you want to find some structure which is why there's a couple of teams we're going to talk about. One team in particular, I think, would do a really good job of blending those with the structure in the offense and letting him run when it's needed.
Yeah, and guys, once again, we will talk about where we see him getting drafted here in just a little bit. But first, I want to go on back here to this article once again from ESPN on ESPN Plus. Appreciate them as always giving us actual good information. So we got to do it here. But I just want to scroll through this really quickly, my man, just to give everybody a heads up of how people are seeing this guy. So you got Kuiper here going with a QB1, mentions how resilient he is as a quarterback. His, once again, accuracy on the move, accuracy, throwing the ball. Bryson, I've been one of those guys. So I've said, and I still say it every day to trolls and idiots on social media, this dude throws the best ball in football. He throws the most accurate ball in football. Mel is seeing it how I'm seeing it. But then you got Miller saying he's a QB2, once again, giving him credit for the accuracy, toughness, field vision, etc. But mentioning that turning over the ball was a bit of a problem for him in that one. You got Reed calling him a QB2, other scouts calling him a QB2. It looks like outside of Kuiper, most of the guys at ESPN believe he is the number 2, and we didn't get to it, but a few guys saying number 3 on the board. How you feeling about that?
I think 2 is pretty fair. It depends on what you want out of your quarterback right away. Do you want a guy who, and by most standards, from what I've seen a lot of people talk about with Shedeur, is the best situation for him is to sit for a year, maybe get drafted behind a veteran. That's going to be another team we talk about later as a possibility. Maybe sitting for a year behind a veteran and letting him learn how the NFL works is a good situation for him. I think he is more pro-ready. Like if you were drafting a quarterback out of this draft class and you needed a quarterback to compete this season, I think he is more pro-ready than Cam Ward is. I think Cam Ward has so much more upside and potential because of the physical gifts that he has. I can see why a lot of people want Cam Ward to be number 1. It just depends on what you want your quarterback right away to be. If you are comfortable sitting through the growing pains, letting him mature, letting a quarterback get ready in the NFL, I think it makes sense to make Cam Ward your number 1. But if you want a quarterback who you can just throw in a game right now in the NFL level, I think Shedeur is a little bit ahead of the curve compared to Cam.
You know, we're going to talk about it in just a minute, but Bryson, call me crazy, brother. I understand, I think, but I don't think that Cam Ward is as good as everybody says he is. I just don't.
I don't know
I'm not
I don't know if it's so much as good as people are saying he is right now. Like, I think people would admit Shedeur was a better quarterback last year than Cam. Cam just has so much more upside, and he has such better physical traits that teams like to buy in on if this guy hits his peak, if he hits his potential, and this guy stays where he is, it's top 5 potential versus maybe just a starting quarterback potential. You know what I mean?
I know it's not quite on the same scale because of where they got drafted, but to be fair, heading into the draft just a couple of years ago in the Kenny Pickett draft, my comparison for Cam Ward this whole time, the hype, everything I'm hearing about it, it's very Malik Willis to me. And once again, I know Ward is a little bit better than Willis in the sense of pre-draft hype. But at the end of the day, Malik Willis, when he was coming out, I want to say Liberty, when he was coming out of there, everybody said, he's bigger than Kenny Pickett and he runs better than Kenny Pickett and he should be the QB1 on the board. He's just better and he has more ways to grow into things. And he's been nothing. With all respect to Malik, great guy, not a good quarterback. And I just don't really see how Cam Ward personally, and I hope I'm wrong. I hope I look back 8 years from now and I'm a dumbass. But right now, I don't see myself in 3 or 4 years going, man, oh man, do I owe the world an apology. This dude is damn good. I just don't think it's going to be like that. I think he's going to be very average. And in my opinion, Kuiper is correct here. I think that Shedeur is not only the number 1 quarterback right now, I actually truly believe Shedeur is going to have the best, or I should even say the better career of those 2 quarterbacks throughout their tenure in the NFL.
That's fair. And I don't think you're necessarily wrong in thinking that. I would also if I were drafting number 1 overall, if I were the Titans in this situation, I'd probably prefer Shedeur Sanders, largely because, again, I can guarantee him being a little bit more pro-ready right away. I think what's the difference is if you see both players reaching their absolute apex, their absolute peak because of Cam Ward's physical gifts. With Cam Ward, you get the Josh Allen type of quarterback. He's that level of quarterback, that arm strength, the athleticism. You get that. Whereas Shedeur, you get like Baker Mayfield. Good
What about
athlete.
Patrick Mahomes?
Maybe he's not quite the magician's an odd term to use in sports.
Fair, but I would say he's more peak male physicality than Patrick Mahomes.
Sure. I would agree with that. I think Shedeur's peak would be like, my absolute ceiling for him, which I don't think he'll hit. I don't think he'll be as good as this guy. My ceiling for Shedeur is Joe Burrow. I think they play very similar together. I think I see his actual peak is a Baker Mayfield. Good athlete, not great athlete. Good arm, maybe not a great arm. Smart, throws an accurate football. He's just not quite that top 5 level. Can he reach top 10 level? Sure. But his physical gifts just kind of hinder him a little bit.
That's fair. I mean, I'm not going to lie. I think if Shedeur Sanders was sitting here and you told him that you think his comparison is Baker Mayfield, bro would probably fall out of his fucking chair. He'd call KFC and ask for a $5 box just so he could throw it at you from the commercial. But with all that said, I really like Shedeur. And once again, not a bang on Baker Mayfield at all. I think he's a better athlete than Baker Mayfield. Baker Mayfield got some dog in him, don't get me wrong. But so does Shedeur Sanders. I would say Baker Mayfield's 6 foot flat.
He's about 6'1", right? 6 foot, 6'1". They're pretty similar in height.
So he's like me, 6'1". He's 6 foot, but he tells people he's 6'1". You know what I'm saying? Yeah. Okay, that's fair. So I would say that Shedeur is a little bit longer than him. I think Shedeur is more accurate than him. I think he's a little bit taller than him. I think he moves a little better than him. And I think they both got dog in them. The only difference is Shedeur Sanders has been growing up with Deion Sanders his whole life. And in my opinion, he just sees the field that much better than Baker Mayfield. So I'm okay with your Baker comparison in the sense of success in his career. Okay. I can maybe see you there, but do I think Shedeur Sanders can win a Super Bowl? I do. Do I think he has a better career than Baker Mayfield? I do. So in my opinion, I'm going to go ahead and get him a little bit better, but I agree with you. I think Joe Burrow, now you're talking peak. Now you're talking if he can make the accuracy like Joe Burrow, move like Joe Burrow, get on a good team like the Bengals and have a T. Higgins and a Jamar Chase and a Mike Gesicki for a while and all these different things to play into his repertoire, then he could have a Joe Burrow career. But if he goes number 1 to the Tennessee Titans, I don't think he's going to have a Joe Burrow career. So it really just comes down to if he'll fall. And now I do want to ask you this because this has been something that a lot of people have kind of brought up and talked about, and more from like the Shedeur camp side a little bit, his dad and everybody like that. They almost, to me, and now once again, KFC commercials, NIL deals, I don't know if he has a deal with Cybertrucks, but he should because he promotes his Cybertruck all the time.
Yeah.
This dude, to me, has plenty of money, and he's going to make plenty of money, and his jersey sales are going to be incredible. The fact that he doesn't have a Rolex deal, bro, what in the world? I don't know. But my point is, I don't think he cares about being the 3rd pick or the 2nd pick and going to the fucking Browns where quarterbacks go to die, or going at let's say 21 or whatever, Pittsburgh Steelers area, those 20th mid-tier teams. If he could go to someone like that and have some weapons right away and win, I really don't think that he's going to care. Yes, every player wants to be the number 1 pick, but I think the second that he doesn't go number 1, low-key, he's going to be hoping he falls. I really think
I've seen a lot of people say that like him slipping would be such a detriment to his career earnings. He's going to make money. Shedeur Sanders already has money. He's going to make a lot of money in his career, like you mentioned. So I think you're right. Unless he's going to get the notoriety of being the number 1 overall pick in the draft, it does make sense to maybe hope you fall to a Pittsburgh Steelers, one of the more stable organizations in football, or you fall to the Rams at 26 and you sit behind Stafford for a year, and then you get to go into your NFL career with one of the smartest head coaches in football with Sean McVay. So I think you're onto something that if he falls, it's maybe the better thing for him, both in terms of his career success and honestly, it could be better for him financially, because if Cam Ward goes number 1 overall to the Titans and bombs, he's not going to get a big contract after that. If Shedeur Sanders goes to the Pittsburgh Steelers and is a 3-year starter after sitting for a year, and he goes to the playoffs consistently with Pittsburgh, they'll give him a big contract after that. So it might even be better financially for him to fall, be on a good team, win right away, get more contracts later down the road.
There you go, man. See, there's a lot of things here. And once again, every other quarterback, my point is outside of his ego, okay, which every player has ego. Every kid wants to get off the draft board as fast as they physically can. That's just normal. Ask Will Levis what it feels like to sit on the couch and not get your name called. It's brutal, bro. Yeah. Your girl leaves you. Your girl leaves you if you don't get called off the couch. So with all that, though, he's the only player that I can look at. And I mean, just NIL in general, these guys are coming into the draft as millionaires. It's just not the same in the sense of I have to go early so I can help my family. His family don't need it, bro. He doesn't need it, bro. It's all good. So, all right. Let's talk about quarterbacks, where people are going to go, et cetera, et cetera. So as you guys see here on the draft board, draft going down in about 16 days. Man, oh man, I can't wait for it. You got the Tennessee Titans at 1, the Browns at 2, the Giants 3, New England 4, and Jacksonville at 5. Let's talk here about the big 5 teams on the board. First of all, do you believe Shedeur Sanders will be going to one of these locations?
See, I think that there's 2 spots he can go here. One, maybe he goes number 1 overall. I just mentioned that his absolute ceiling is Joe Burrow and Brian Callahan, who was the offensive coordinator in Cincinnati. Everyone's just kind of assuming Tennessee is going to take Cam Ward number 1 overall. That's kind of what I think will happen as well. But maybe Brian's like, hey, I see Joe Burrow and Shedeur Sanders. I worked with Joe Burrow. I want that as my quarterback. I don't think it's going to happen, but I think it's something to keep an eye on. I think he has one other option before he really starts to slip, and that's the New York Giants. I don't think Cleveland's going to take him, even though Cleveland desperately needs to take a quarterback to get out of this Deshaun Watson mess they put themselves in. I think they've really talked themselves into Abdul Carter, the pass rusher out of Penn State, or Travis Hunter, the best player in the draft, in my opinion, out of CU. And so I don't think he's going to go number 2 overall to Cleveland. So I think his only other option here on the screen that we're looking at is the New York Giants. And now you're asking yourself, the Giants signed Russell Wilson. They also signed Jameis Winston. They have Tommy DeVito on their roster. They have a lot of quarterbacks. Do they want to bring Shedeur Sanders in here? He'll probably sit for a year, maybe 2. But then by the time Shedeur Sanders gets his crack at the NFL, is Brian Daboll still there? Is Joe Shane?
Well, and let's not talk about it, but we can both mention the quarterback class that's coming after this quarterback class.
Sure.
So it's all good.
It's an odd thing. The Giants could look at that, like you're saying, they can play Russell Wilson for a year and then just go into a better quarterback draft class the next year. I don't think they feel desperate to take Shedeur. So if he doesn't go to the Titans at 1 and he doesn't go to the Giants at 3, then you really start to see a slip here. And that's where I've got one crazy hypothetical I want to throw at you, and then I'm going to give you my actual where I think he's going to land in this draft as my official pick for Shedeur Sanders. But first, I'll go real quick with the hypothetical. What if by pick, where are they? The 49ers are pick 12. Oh, sorry, they're pick 11. The 49ers are pick 11 in this draft. What if Kyle Shanahan sees Shedeur Sanders slips and he's like, man, I can reset my quarterback financial clock. I don't have to pay Brock Purdy $50 million a year. I get a guy who's got a little bit more potential than Brock Purdy. I think he fits Kyle Shanahan's system really well. He can trade Brock Purdy to a Cleveland for that 2nd-round pick. He can trade him maybe to Pittsburgh if they haven't signed Aaron Rodgers by now and get maybe pick 21. Or maybe a 2nd-round pick from Pittsburgh. Like, they can trade Brock, get some more capital with Shedeur, and they can reset this whole financial clock instead of having to pay Brock Purdy $50 million a year. I don't think it'll happen. It sounds like they're pretty committed to Brock Purdy. But if he's there at 11, I don't think it's just something Kyle Shanahan can just brush off. I think he has to give it a thought, because I think Shedeur would be phenomenal with the San Francisco 49ers.
First off, if that happens, I feel bad for Brock Purdy, because no one is giving Brock Purdy the money that he should be getting from the San Francisco 49ers. And I actually think they want to keep Brock Purdy more because they feel that they owe Brock Purdy because they took him, they made him who he is, and now they got to pay him for what he's done. They feel that. Bryson, I don't want him, brother. So don't send him over here because I don't want him. But anyway, to answer your question about Shedeur at 11, I completely agree with you in the sense of Shanahan has to consider that. I mean, that's got to be like, hey, we don't think this guy is going to be here at 11, but if he is, what are we doing? Because I'll tell you what, the Steelers are a team that I believe wants Shedeur Sanders. And if they can get out of the top 10 picks without having to trade up to go get him and give up less, like they're not going to pay Cleveland for him. You know what I mean? But if he's sitting there at 11, maybe the Steelers come up and grab him. I mean, let's take a couple other quick looks here at who else would be willing, I guess, to come up there and get him. Green Bay, no. LA, no. Who?
I think it's only one team that would trade up to take Shedeur Sanders if he falls to that 11th pick. If he falls past the 49ers at 11, I think there's only one team who's going to make the risk and give up the draft capital to trade up and get him.
And is it the Steelers or the Rams?
It's the Steelers. My official prediction is the Steelers are going to draft Shedeur Sanders. I don't know if it's at 21 where they are currently. I don't know if they feel like they have to trade up to get him just to say they got him. But I think he's going to end up a Pittsburgh Steeler by the end of the first round of the draft.
Sorry, I know. So I'm getting excited about my Steelers. I'm not answering your question. Look, man, I do think that you're onto something there. I do think it's worth consideration. They've already had money problems here in the past. They're trying to get everybody paid that wants to get paid. They've had to lose a couple guys over the last year or so because they didn't have enough money for people. And so I do see what you're saying of they could reset the clock all over again with a dude who brings a whole new look to the offense. I hate to say it, but I kind of feel that Brock Purdy has shown us probably the best of Brock Purdy. I don't think there's much more to get out of Brock Purdy there. He's an okay runner, but I think Shedeur's better. He's an okay thrower, but I think Shedeur's better. I see what you're saying here, and I really like your take. I think, first of all, I haven't seen anybody else bring up that scenario. So good on you for bringing that up because I could see a smart head coach like Kyle Shanahan has to be considering that in the back of his mind. But I do want to agree with you when all comes to the table that the Pittsburgh Steelers are going to get Shedeur Sanders. Tomlin and Dion, that makes sense. Shedeur Sanders, Tomlin, DK Metcalf, they got veteran wide receivers to help this guy out. They got young guys like Pickens who they can make that relationship. There's so many things working there for the Pittsburgh Steelers to get it done. And they haven't pulled the trigger yet on Aaron Rodgers. So even if they do bring in Aaron Rodgers, they don't want him for more than a year anyway. And who would you want him to learn under other than Aaron freaking Rodgers? This isn't Aaron Rodgers and Jordan Love where Aaron Rodgers is going to be like, I don't want to teach a young guy that's going to take my place. Bro, you old as shit now. You're getting replaced. So now it would be more about trying to do it for the team. And I think Aaron would buy into that if they guaranteed him at least, 9 weeks for 9 weeks, no matter what, you do your job, we'll keep you in. But if you suck after 9 weeks, we're putting him in kind of thing. So anyway, with that said, so we're both saying Shedeur Sanders is going to be a Pittsburgh Steeler. I know we're going to do our quarterback show for all of the first round quarterbacks that we think are going to get drafted. That one coming up here in the next few days. So stay tuned for that. But my man, anything else at the moment that has to do with Shedeur Sanders at all that you want to throw out there?
Yeah, I think the only other team I can see really going after Shedeur Sanders in this first round is the Rams. But I don't think the Rams are going to go up to get him. I don't think they're going to trade up to get him. I think they're comfortable where they are at 26. Maybe he falls to them there. Maybe they take Jackson Dart in the first round and sit behind Stafford for a year. I know you said we'll talk about quarterbacks another time, but I think those are the three teams I want people to pay attention to on draft night. The Rams and the Steelers are the more realistic ones. But I wouldn't be shocked if the 49ers are there, sitting there at 11 and Shedeur Sanders is right there and Kyle's like, man, I can work with this guy. I won with Jimmy G. I won with Brock Purdy. I can win with Shedeur Sanders and get 5 years of a cheap quarterback again under my belt.
We will see what happens. By the way, I do want to throw out there, I think if he's sitting there at 20 right before the Steelers pick, I could see the Rams making the phone call at that point with the Denver Broncos. And then your Denver Broncos get a little something for him too. But with that said, guys, we got to roll out of here. Riggs Tamburo, Bryson Owens, where's Shedeur Sanders going? We think it's the Pittsburgh Steelers, but we'll see you guys. Take care, and we'll see you in the next one.